real estate, and let's say you buy it for $100,000 and it goes up to $150,000 in value, or you buy it for $500,000 and it goes up to $700,000 in value. You do not pay taxes on the increase in value until you sell it. Capital gains is realized but not recognized.
For more straight talk on life and money, go to DaveRamsey.com.
Hi, folks. This is Tom Gresham, and I invite you to join me as I share safety tips, useful advice on buying and maintaining firearms, and having fun with the shooting sports on Gun Talk.
Sunday afternoons at 3 on News Talk 1090 WKBZ.
Start each day with a special happy feeling. You will if you have the iHeartRadio app on your smartphone and tablet. iHeartRadio lets you listen to 1,500 live radio stations. You can make custom stations with it. You can even use the Perfect For feature. Perfect for any activity. That's why it gives you that special happy feeling. Don't have it? Then get it. Download the free iHeartRadio app at iHeartRadio.com.
A word from the cast of Hot in Cleveland.
Want to hear a joke?
Yes, sure.
What's the #1 killer of women?
Well, you're still here, so that rules out crankiness.
And tracksuits.
Heart disease.
But that's a joke?
No, it's an absolute fact, but the American Heart Association says you can save lives by passing it along to 5 women you love.
Aww.
So I'm starting with 3 I tolerate. That's a joke.
Find out more at GoRedForWomen.org.
Fox News Radio, I'm Jared Halpern. 250,000 worshipers packed St. Peter's Square at the Vatican.
Think about it. Listen to this. Just amazing. It gives me chills.
Pope Francis giving his first Easter Sunday address as leader of the Catholic Church.
To change vengeance into forgiveness, war into peace.
Through a translator, the pontiff calling for peace in Syria and reconciliation between North and South Korea. A top prosecutor in Kaufman County, Texas, and his wife found dead in their home. It comes just a few months after an assistant district attorney in the North Texas city was shot and killed in a parking lot. No official word yet on whether the killings are connected. It's baseball's opening day. One game tonight. The Houston Astros host the Texas Rangers. The Astros making their American League debut. The season starts for most other teams tomorrow. Fox News. We report, you decide.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
And it's a happy Easter, Muskegon, and all the West Michigan listeners. Maybe we ought to have different music on an Easter morning rather than the dadgum government. But I guess it was the dadgum government back in the day that wasn't all that happy with Jesus Christ and did him in. So he was probably not fond of the dadgum government way back in the good old days.
Yeah, the Roman authorities eventually came around after a few hundred years, though.
Yes, after some period of time. But hey, this is EyeOnMuskegon, and I'm Jim Riley, your host for this community conversation. And sitting here in the Clear Channel studios with my friend and engineer, Oscar Osbo, and helping us out again, MCC trustee, television superstar, and author Sean Mullally. Morning again.
Good
Sean.
morning.
Don't let me forget to get that autograph too before you leave, okay?
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. It'll go into your Hall of Fame with all these celebrities you were telling me about that you've hung around with during your years, your decades in the radio business.
Decades. It's getting a little deep here, guys.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, we'll get some.
Didn't say I hung around with him. I was not lucky enough to meet him. That was about it. But anyway,
that works for me. Hey, again, we are a call-in radio show, and certainly I hope you are either celebrating or enjoying this Easter Sunday. And the number here, 231-830-3109. And you can call anytime between now and just before 10 o'clock, and we'd be very happy to get you on the radio, make you part of the media here in Muskegon, which is what we're trying to do, is to bring more people into a conversation of what's going on in our community, our county, our state, and of course what's going on nationally and of course internationally, where you've got all sorts of situations going on. But now those wonderful folks over in North Korea are celebrating the brilliant the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and the new Secretary of State, John Kerry's abilities to bring them into the family of nations. And
I think they were most excited about Dennis Rodman recently.
Dennis certainly did not appear to have been all that successful at diffusing whatever anger that little moron over there has within him. But there's things going on all over, and
we're listening to us on iHeartRadio right now.
Well, he is a moron. And it's interesting. This was done actually in Nazi Germany, but in North Korea, the only radios that are allowed to be available, I don't think that they're sold, they're probably forced upon those who take them, but have like 3 stations. That's it. And you don't have the ability to move through different stations and catch what might be in the South Korean radio station or Chinese radio station. They are limited to whatever propaganda the good folks in North Korea, the leaders of North Korea, will allow them to have. And if you are a leader, that you'd love to control the media. That's one of the first things any group does when they take over a country, when there's a revolution.
You've been looking for a country for a long time, haven't you?
Well, I'm sitting here in our little country of the Norton Shores, I guess you'd call it, and so we have taken over the radio station this morning. So, hey, on this day in history, and I of course, it is Easter Sunday, and it's a very sacred and important holiday for millions upon millions of Christians. But I found it interesting. I like all of us, I use Google multiple times a day, and I would love to find something better, and I would imagine at some point that there will be something better. But Google has always had every day a little celebration of whatever was important on that day on the Google website. If you just type in Google on your computer and hit it.
Sometimes it's a very obscure thing that they're...
Sometimes it's obscure, sometimes it's, it's whatever happens to be going on. But today... which really shocks me, and I doubt this would happen if this was an important Muslim holiday. But today, which is Easter Sunday, people are celebrating the Easter weekend, the Easter break, which used to be Easter break, and any number of things. But it is an important date, and it certainly has to do with the history and traditions within our country. But today, if you go to Google, you will see a little circle with the picture of a man who you probably will not recognize, and that's Sever Chavez, who was a labor organizer in California. And apparently this is I believe it's his birthday. But
Easter is one of those holidays that it's rather unique in the way it migrates around the calendar. It's not a fixed day like
that's correct.
It was actually on my birthday last year.
Yes, and it has. You're right. It does move around, but I would imagine the folks at Google could have Googled and found out what date Easter was going to be. And it just seemed odd to me. I would say it's a slap in the face. I mean, Easter is not an insignificant holiday. And in fact, it is a holiday. It's a day that people take off.
As significant as Christmas, I would think. But
well, maybe not as significant as Christmas, but perhaps more significant than a labor union organizer's birthday. And I just thought, isn't that there are people who truly do not like the history and the culture of this country, and they want to change it. The President of the United States has said he wants to fundamentally change the United States in many ways, including its culture. And this is a way. And, of course, one of the things that's being discussed loudly, of course, is the gay marriage and things of that sort, which we may touch on. But I would like to give a quote here, which I got from last week's co-host, Tammy Derwin, who truly, if you're out there listening, Tammy, you've got to get yourself that blog up to speed, because there's no way for me to get her wonderful articles available. She is a columnist for The Examiner, among others, and I'd say one of the best political commentators I've ever read. And unless you happen to be on her email list, or unless you happen to pick up the newspaper, which is certainly worth picking it up to read her comments and her columns. But she started, or at least in her most recent column, she brings a quote from Ayn Rand, of course, the celebrated author of Atlas Shrugged and any number of other books. But the quote is, "The U.S. Constitution is a limitation on the government, not on private individuals. It does not prescribe the conduct of private individuals, only the conduct of the government. It is not a charter for government power, but a charter of the citizens' protection against government." And as we have government expansion into everything today, even things as minor as, how big a soft drink you'd be able to drink within a city, as opposed to nationally. And
which has been thrown out from what I understand.
A judge threw out that particular one, but it did not throw out the concept that government should tell us what we can eat and how much of what we can eat. Matter of fact, it was kind of interesting that the mayor Bloomberg of New York, in defense of this ridiculous big gulp limit, he said, this isn't food control, this is portion control. So not only does government feel, not only is government very comfortable telling us what we can eat or should eat, or in many cases can't eat, but now they're very comfortable. He's been outed. He's outed himself and saying, we're going to tell you how much of that you can or cannot eat.
You can only eat one chocolate bunny a day.
Well, we are not far from the possibility, and frankly, I would say nothing could be believed not possible, but why not have a chip within your body that measures everything that you eat and sends it to a government computer where people determine, wait a minute, this person is eating too many Peeps and or chocolate bunnies, and we need to send a health a health soldier, a health volunteer.
Health soldier.
Someone to their home. and
I'm the health soldier. Yeah, I could just see that.
And, of course, that would start out. Wouldn't it be great to start that out rather than go to mom and dad?
Yeah.
Because parents, they're adults. They, at least in some places, can make their own decisions. But what about the children? Should we allow parents to let their kids eat too many chocolate bunnies? There's studies out there that show that too many chocolate bunnies can be dangerous to a young child's growth and mental acuity, and ultimately could even lead to violence.
We could continue to have the Rock as the tooth fairy, and he could tell them not to eat the chocolates and stuff. But
and if you're worried about the tracking technology, RFID chips and whatnot,
there you go.
That'll be the first place you see it.
Yeah.
Keep your kids from getting kidnapped. Put this chip in them, and it'll be introduced that way. And suddenly, you've got employees at your business you want to keep track of. Well, here's this handy technology.
Well, I think that too many of us who believe that maybe we're on the right side of the political world, whether Republicans or they're the Democrats or the liberals or conservatives, are really missing out on the fact that it's government expansion that really, I believe, causes most of the problems that we have. Certainly, I would say the biggest problem that we face in this country today is our governments, be it the federal government or our state, county, city governments, township governments, are broke. And they're broke not because they're not taking more money from us. They're broke because they're spending too much money. But let's talk about some of the things that have happened. One of the things that as we were talking off air, this show has morphed over the year and a half that we've been on the air, and we're kind of downsizing, if you will, the number of guests that we're going to have, and in order to talk more about the issues that have happened in the past week. But those of us who are my age and maybe a few years younger, I don't know, Sean, if you remember this, but I used to feel pretty good about myself if I finished the week, but I hadn't maybe read many newspapers because I had a life. I was doing other things, but I could sit down and I'd pick up either Newsweek or Time magazine and scoot through it, and you got a pretty good set of brains of what happened in the world in the last week. So we're trying to do something like that in terms to, we'll do the homework, we'll do the searching of the newspapers and the internet and try to find out what's happened here in Muskegon and West Michigan and maybe some other places.
Locally based anyway, because you can get all the national stuff you want on Yahoo or anywhere you want to go anywhere you want to Google. on the web.
Well, that's right, and most everything that we get is ultimately from the web, but you may not have dug in as deeply as we have. And Sean brought in the Muskegon Chronicle today, and the headline is concerns about the fracking going on in Muskegon County, and what I found interesting is that the arguments against fracking don't seem to have a lot of weight. Now, I don't want to get into the deep, is fracking, going to kill us or not, because I haven't seen much in the way of real specifics in terms of the danger. I've seen much of the specifics been debunked, but I found this interesting. This was from one of the people who was protesting, one who, at least in theory, had some experience and some knowledge of what was fracking. And the quote was, "Just because there hasn't been an ecological issue in the past doesn't mean there won't be." Now, is that a reason? I mean, using that same logic, couldn't you say, look, just because people don't get cancer from going into Walmart doesn't mean that they might in the future. Should we not shut down the Walmarts? Because children could be dying of cancer going into Walmarts.
Yeah, well, speaking of Walmarts, too, did you see on Channel 13, they did have their petitioners or their complainers and their protesters out at Doghouse Saloon. Or not Doghouse Saloon, Dog and Suds over in Montague.
Doghouse
kind of a different, different place.
Saloon and Suds.
Dog and Suds, they were protesting the Walmart over there.
Well, that's a perfect segue into this, because again, what's interesting is if you go into Whitehall, and I moved to the Montague-Whitehall area back in 1976, and I lived there into the mid-'80s. But the turnover in businesses in Whitehall, Montague, has been unbelievable. I mean, enormous turnover. You name it. Very few businesses that are there today certainly were there 20 years ago. And the concept that businesses might shut down in Whitehall or Montague, or might suffer competition because customers would prefer to buy from another store. I mean, that's nothing new. And, I found interesting, one of the, a gentleman I know, it's a good guy, but he owns a tavern in town and in Whitehall. And he seems to be one of the louder voices that has been quoted. But his business is not likely to be affected.
No, but the three businesses that I have been there for a while, which is Pitkin's, Dog and Suds, and the ice cream place.
Yeah, and is Dog and Suds going to go out of business because of Walmart? Certainly not. Is the ice cream place going to go out of business because of Walmart competition? Certainly not. I
think you're going to see more worry when it comes to Plums, to Hunt's Hardware,
right?
And
Hunt's, that's true. That's been there forever too.
That's right. And again, certainly I don't have any problem with them saying, wait a minute, it's going to be hard for us to compete. But it isn't all of Whitehall. It isn't all of the Whitehall businesses. It's a very, very small number of businesses that are going to be affected. And if, in fact, competition, and let's face it, competition is competition. There tend to be winners and losers in competition. If we didn't allow for that, we would still be subsidizing buggy whip manufacturers and buggies and on and on and on. I mean, we must allow. One of the benefits of, but also it's a downside to capitalism, is that there are losers at some point as time goes forward. We don't have, any number of things today that we used to have, that people, customers, Americans, have decided that they're not interested in purchasing any longer. But if in fact that competition was going to be so awful to, like you said, the drugstore, well, Walgreens opened up. I'm sure Walgreens is going to do as big a business, if not bigger, than any Walmart. So I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that Walmart isn't union.
Well, I do think a lot of it has to do with the pay scale and compensation package that they bring forward. Part of that is going to be related to the fact that they're non-unionized, but generally speaking, you will see a lowering of the pay scale when those jobs come in. And if you look at what has happened in other communities.
That may very well be. Is that bad?
Well, it's bad if the people then are being paid below the poverty line and are turning to public assistance, because I don't mind as a taxpayer having a social safety net for people that fall on hard times. I do mind when that social safety net is used to help support the employees of profitable companies. Because
so Walmart is the
my
largest
responsibility.
But Walmart's the largest employer in the country. Should they be put out of business because of the negative of the situations that you're suggesting? Should they
I don't think they're anywhere near getting put out of business.
No, I know that. What do you think? Should they?
I do think.
Are they bad
should.
for America?
I think that they should pay their people enough to live on so that I don't have to then support.
But shouldn't the
their
people who work for Walmart make that decision?
Well, I think they should. I think they should come together and negotiate for a better compensation package.
But they have repeatedly and publicly voted down union representation.
With interference by Walmart.
Okay. Are we? I'm hearing a little music.
Yeah, time for a break.
There it is.
Oh, this is the taunt to the geezer in the office.
Geezer award.
Well, we're still a little early on this. Okay, we're going to take a break. We will be right back.
Doing the garden, digging the weeds. Who could ask for more? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
It's the sale Michigan's been waiting for. It's been extended. The biggest sale in Michigan. Benton's giant 30th anniversary sale. Both sides of Henry Street are packed wall to wall with vehicles. And right now, get up to 30% off your new car. Trade-in values are at an all-time record high. Buy low and sell high. Get up to 30% off your new car. 0% financing and up to $10,000 in discounts and more. Hurry. This sale ends March 30th. Right now, get a 2013 Chevy Silverado. Only $198 a month, plus 2 years free maintenance, or a 2013 Chevy Cruze, only $79 a month. A huge selection of Chevy Malibus at $109 per month, and Chevy Equinox just $119 a month. We want and need your trade, and values are at record high levels. Plus, get up to 30% off the price of your new vehicle. Every vehicle sold is backed by the Benton low price guarantee. It's where Michigan shops. Benton, both sides of Henry Street, Muskegon. Hurry, this sale ends March 30th.
Car number 7 is pulling into the pit.
Team, I want peak performance. Let's go over my diabetes checklist.
Start taking action now for diabetes.
Medication.
Got 'em. And my insulin supplies.
Exercise. Check. At least 30 minutes most days. Blood sugar level?
On target.
Diet?
Eating healthy.
And your A1C is under control.
Keeping your blood pressure and your cholesterol in the zone is also important.
Check. How am I doing?
Your numbers are looking good. You're good to go.
Thanks, team.
Whoa, look at number 7 racing out of the pit.
Managing diabetes, including controlling blood sugar, is a team effort. Keeping your body at its peak performance requires a plan that's right for you. Take the wheel and start taking action now for diabetes. For more information, visit standfordiabetes.org. That's standfordiabetes.org.
A public service of TCOYD made possible with support from Sanofi Aventis US.
News Talk 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes.
And we got that Eastern music bringing us back. This is EyeOnMuskegon. Sitting here with Jim Riley, Sean Mullally, and Oscar Osbo. Sean, you've got some up-close and personal information on a new contract of one of the largest employers in Muskegon County. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about collective bargaining, and the largest union in the county right now is UAW 1243, which represents the workforce up at Alcoa Howmet, about 1,100 working members, and I'm a member. We just signed last week, a new 5-year labor contract that both sides seem to be pretty happy with. Spent a couple months in negotiations, but came to what seems to be mutually beneficial agreement.
Now, was this contract signed just before the Freedom to Work bill kicked in? So, in other words, people who work for Howmet are forced by the union to pay union dues, or are they able to make their own choice?
Yep. Actually, the last 5-year contract expired in March, so that is when the contract was coming due anyway. It just so happened to be that's when they put the law into effect, was right afterwards. So
and how long is this contract?
Before. It's another 5 years.
Okay. So those folks who are looking for freedom to work, those folks who were saying, geez, why should I have to pay a union in order to work at Howmet? They kind of got stuck. They're going to be forced to pay, even though they may not support the union or its political goals, for the next 5 years. Is that correct?
Well, there really wasn't anybody that was looking very strongly for that. Neither the workers through their union or management was really interested.
Well, there was a vote. There was a vote to ratify. What were the numbers on that?
It was ratified pretty overwhelmingly.
Do you know the numbers?
Not off the top of my head, but it was over 704 and about 80 against.
Okay, and how many employees are there over there who would have been?
1,100, give or take a few.
Okay, so 700 voted for it and 400 did not.
Yeah, well, they didn't all vote against it.
Yeah, but they did not vote for it.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that's those folks are locked in. They will not have the benefit of freedom to work, and we'll see what happens. I hope.
Do you think, though, personally, do you think that the wage would be as good as it is over there if the union wasn't there?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But.
Well, the only thing is, and I think it's important if you look at the statistics, union employees tend to have higher wages and tend to be the first people who've been losing their jobs in this last 20 years. If you work for the high-wage shop, they say, oops, you have these wonderful high wages, these high benefits, and these great work rules that we all
send
love.
It to Mexico,
and we're going to shut down your plant. Yeah, the survivors certainly those survivors who are getting the publicly financed pension benefits in the UAW and General Motors and Chrysler are thrilled with it. But what happens is you can price yourself out of the market, and while I don't disagree that the wages and benefits and work rules may be beneficial to some.
I think
in the long run, when cutbacks are made, the corporations look at those and say, geez, is that good for us in the long run? And quite often, sadly, as we've seen in the state of Michigan, almost all of the job loss has gone from union shops.
I think the line of business has a lot to do with it, too. I mean, Alcoa is in the aerospace business, has been very successful in, well, both the military side and the commercial side. And I think having that good compensation package there is a recruiting tool, too.
Is employment at Howmet up, let's say, over the last 10, 20, 30 years, or is it down, or is it about the same?
They've been hiring now. We were down a few years ago to, at least on the unionized side of the workforce, to about 800 or so, give or take.
And now it's 1,100.
Back up to 1,100.
Okay, well, so it hasn't hurt them, at least in his last few years.
No, but the one advantage they've had with that pay scale, they always have the pick of who they want to work for in Muskegon County. I mean, they can take whatever applications they want, and
well, they got the tests and everything else too. So it's
not
like it's just handed to you.
Alrighty, well, we will be back. There's more things. There's another millage increase that apparently Muskegon County residents just absolutely are really looking forward to paying. We'll talk about that and the safety of folks who are witnesses in criminal proceedings. So we'll be back after the break.
Oh, don't you love me sometime?
What did they do? What did they do to my city? I pushed Michael Yu away from the binoculars and took a look. Hey! In the streets below, traffic had stopped. Pedestrians were lying on sidewalks and curled up in doorways. There was no sign of violence, no wrecks, nothing like that. It was as if the people in New York had simply decided to stop whatever they were doing and pass out. Ice coated my stomach. A line from the prophecy rang in my ears.
And see the world in endless sleep.
Not dead. He has put the entire island of Manhattan to sleep. The invasion has started. To find out what happens next, read Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Rick Riordan. Explore new worlds and check out more cool books at your local library and visit read.gov. Brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
The Talk of Muskegon is News Talk 1090 WKBZ Muskegon and heard 24 hours a day on WOOD HD2 Muskegon.
Look how sad your smartphone is because it doesn't have iHeartRadio. It can't listen to 1,500 live radio stations. It can't make its own custom music stations. It can't even use the Perfect 4 feature. No wonder it's sad. I may weep myself. But you can cheer that phone up. Download the iHeartRadio app now. It's free at iHeartRadio.com. iHeartRadio is now available on Roku.
A message from Orlando Bloom, Joel Madden, Nicole Ritchie, Neo, and Taya Leone.
24,000 children die every day from preventable causes.
Like not getting enough food or medicine.
Or clean, safe water to drink.
But we are gaining ground. A generation ago, twice as many children were dying.
Still, 24,000 every day?
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
Believe.
I believe that number should be zero. Believe in zero.
Join the effort. Visit UNICEFUSA.org.
Here's the official News Talk 1090 WKBZ forecast for this Easter Sunday. A few showers this morning and then overcast skies this afternoon with a high near 45 with southwest winds 10 to 20 miles an hour. Partly to mostly cloudy skies tonight, a low down to 28 with northwest winds 15 to 25. Snow flurries and a few snow showers possible tomorrow with a high around 35. Northwest winds 15 to 25 and snow showers still possibility on Tuesday with a high around 35. News Talk 1090, the Talk of Muskegon.
America had just gone to war when Felipe Adams volunteered.
I took a bullet to the side and left me paralyzed.
For Armando de la Rosa, the Navy was a chance to serve and see the world.
I got medically discharged in 2001.
For injured veterans like Felipe Adams, there are veterans like Armando de la Rosa ready to help.
Our training is to better the veteran.
Paralyzed Veterans of America, changing lives, building futures. Visit PVA.org.
90 WKBZ.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dad.
Let's start off with a quote from Michigan's latest and greatest president of the United States of America. A government that is big enough to give you everything is also big enough to take away everything. And there's an issue in Muskegon Heights, but it's certainly an issue within the entire county of Muskegon, and that is with Muskegon area violence. And this is a MLive article, pretty well done one, I think. But it some readers doubt promised witness protection is the headline, and what happened here is that folks were responding to the MLive article about witness protection and victim protection that was afforded to them by the various police agencies within the county, generally focusing on Muskegon Heights and the city of Muskegon. And people were fearful to come forward because of fears of retaliation from the bad guys. And, of course, that makes it very, very tough for the police to apprehend the bad guys. And in particular, it makes the bad guys even more badder. Mo badder. Because there we go. Thank you. I've got my walking thesaurus here. Thank you so much. It emboldens the bad guys because they then know that they can get away with intimidation and threats. In many cases, they probably don't even have to try because there is this belief that government, in the form of local police, local sheriff, state police, you name it, will not be there to protect them. Now, I don't know the answer to this, but I do know the answer will not come in the form of legions of additional police officers who are going to be solving crimes like the CSI folks on TV. We know that our communities, certainly Muskegon Heights, certainly City of Muskegon, are telling us that they're running out of money. We know that tax revenues are going to be dropping for both of those communities. So we're not going to see additional significant police resources available to protect these very people.
I know one place people were hopefully looking for some change, and that was this last year. We saw change in leadership in the prosecutor's office for the first time in many years in this county. We've got a new county prosecutor, and it's perhaps too early yet with a few months on the job to see if
he's got his own radio show,
what he's going to do. But I think there's a lot of potential there, and of course you got to have resources that go with that anyways. I mean, you can't, like you said, you can't just throw money at a problem and expect it to be solved. But he's got to have something to work with.
Well, I don't necessarily think it's the prosecutor's job there. I sadly and not surprisingly disagree with your analysis. And my reason is a very big article that was written, co-written with the Sheriff Rossler, Muskegon County Sheriff, suggesting that what we really needed to do to fix things up was more money for early child education, kindergarten and pre-kindergarten. So it seems to me that if that's his focus, he seems to have missed this article about witnesses and victims who are fearful for their lives. It might be nice to give oodles of other people's money to educate the children, more so who are 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. Well, that isn't going to protect one single citizen in our county. Not one.
There might be an analogy there to perhaps cancer. If you want to treat cancer, it might be good to talk about preventative stuff, healthy lifestyle and whatnot. But you've also already got a cancer, and that's going to take aggressive treatment.
So which one do you focus on? He's focusing on don't eat the big gulp because it might give you cancer 40 years from now, rather than the tumor that you've got in your breast right now. So I'm not optimistic about that at all. But the reason I wanted to bring this up, and I don't want to get too long-winded on this, is that think about this. What we have and the reason I used the quote from Gerald Ford about government being big enough to take things away from you, and that simply is, what do we have? On one hand, we've got government clearly unable to protect the victims of crime and those who are witnesses who might be able to aid the government, the police and the sheriff, in their catching the bad guys. At the same time, every one of these guys, I'm sure that our wonderful new prosecutor, and I'm sure that our wonderful new sheriff, and certainly almost every elected Democrat in the state of Michigan is sides proudly with Vice President Biden and President Obama in regulating and doing their best to make sure that citizens can't own weapons with which they might be able to protect themselves from these bad guys at a time when the bad guys are again as emboldened as possible. So That's government, folks. Think about if they're interested in portion control on a Coca-Cola, legal portion control on a Coca-Cola, and they're proud of it. What do you think they're going to do when they get the control, the full control, if they're able to overturn the Second Amendment and start charging you $10,000 a year to have a gun permit? Or what have you. So anyway, my heart goes out to the good folks of Muskegon Heights. They are victims. They continue to be victims. And the white folks are saying, we've got the answer. We're going to give oodles of other people's money to educating 4-year-olds. I'm sorry, I don't buy that at all. I don't think that's going to work. And interestingly, the head of the Black Entertainment Network, and his name is Johnson, very well known, obviously an inordinately successful guy. But he has come out, and good for him. He's saying this country would never tolerate white unemployment at 14 or 15%, which is the unemployment rate that is going on in the black community throughout this country and significantly higher in many of the cities. And here's a quote. He said, if that doesn't change, somebody's going to have to pay. 34 million African Americans are not going to leave this country. Millions of African Americans who don't have jobs, somebody's going to have to pay for them. Somebody's going to have to take care of them. And if somebody's going to have to take care of them, that money's got to come from somebody, and who's ever paying for it is going to be upset about it, and they're going to start looking for someone to blame. And I suspect he's talking about significantly high levels of racial animosity. On one hand, you've got an entire community within our country that has criminally high unemployment rates. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, you've got at least the perception that it's the white folks that are paying to keep the black folks, who knows, in the hood or what have you. But in other words, the white folks are going to be unhappy, according to this gentleman, about having to pay for the blacks, and certainly...
And it is a disproportionate problem in the black community, but at the same time...
Absolutely.
If you look at the raw numbers nationwide, most the people on food stamps, most the people on welfare are white, even though... In the black community,
the percentages, you must use percentages because there are far fewer folks. Well, again, I don't think we're going to pretend to answer this, but the reason I bring this one up is to take it to the next step, because there's another radio station in town, The Beat, WUVS, and it's got I think he's the owner, Paul Billings. I've never met Paul. I'd like to get him on the show.
Good guy.
You better give a plug to the competition here, are you, Jim?
Absolutely. I think, and again, I've got to really go out of my way to meet this guy because he's done many things. He's the one who made this attempt last week for the job fair. He seems to be one of the real logical and louder voices in that community over there.
He's a good upstate and community-oriented guy.
Yeah, and that's, frankly, that's what that community needs. That's what every community needs. I'd like to see a little more of that in Norton Shores and the rest of the county. But he apparently got nationwide publicity here because he had the gall to ban music by certain rappers, Rick Ross and Lil Wayne, and apparently because of their vile lyrics. And think about this. Here's a gentleman who listens to what the black youngsters are listening to and says, this is just wrong. And there's apparent outrage throughout the country that he would dare to do this. Well, my hat's off to you, Paul. You're not going to change any community until you change the culture. If the culture is such that women are hoes,
there was a big outrage in the '60s for rock and roll, for radio stations that played rock and roll. There was a big outrage for Beatles music. That Beatles music should be burned.
Do you suggest those long-haired guys?
Yeah.
You suggest that that there's a comparison between some of the violence? Okay, how about this?
I think
here's Lil Wayne. Here's Lil Wayne.
He can play whatever he wants.
He would beat a woman's jet. No, that's right. He can say, I don't want to.
He's one of the few people too that actually owns his radio station. There's not too many uncorporate radio stations these days that though there's none around here that I know of except for The Beat. So
well, I'll tell you this. He's one of the very few people in America to stand up against this. And I'm
not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying it's
I think to compare that with the Beatles is missing the point. But hey, a lot of folks miss the point. I mentioned we were going to talk about another survey. I got to love these surveys. This was by the Muskegon, I believe, the Intermediate School District, and they surveyed 400 people, the telephone survey, and 68% of those people surveyed said that they really support another tax increase, a brand new millage, 10-year, 1 mil tax increase on all of those folks who pay property taxes in Muskegon County. So good for them. There's little question there's excess money in the pockets of folks here in Muskegon County that really ought to be taken out and given to government. In this case, this is for school technology. Apparently, this is in addition, by the way, to the MCC millage that will be coming out shortly, and of course we have our brand new jail and juvenile center coming out soon, which we've been promised, and I don't for a minute believe, but we have been promised will pay for itself.
Well, schools are in a pinch. I don't think there's any school board member that enjoys the idea of going and asking for millages, but if they're getting less dollars from the state and their existing property tax revenue is decreasing because, of course, all our houses are getting worth less, and then they're having a hard time making ends meet. And I don't think anybody likes the idea of a solution like that, but they're kind of grasping at straws.
Well, 68% of the people, according to this poll, think it's a grand idea to increase taxes. Now, I wonder how many of those businesses who aren't going to be paying, if you've got an average house that's worth $82,000, you're only going to pay $26 a year. I wonder how many businesses who are looking at what this is going to do to their bottom line are thinking, geez, oh, Pete's,
Jeez, oh, Pete's.
Ottawa County is only 2 miles from here. I don't know, but I suspect Muskegon isn't the very high unemployment, almost totally bankrupt county it is. In particular, when it's next to 2 pretty well-run counties like Kent and Ottawa. We didn't get to where we are by mistake and just by bad luck. A bad moon rising that only shadows.
Especially when there's so many other ones around us that are successful. But anyway.
It's you mentioned this earlier, Sean. These. Well, actually, it was you, Oscar, that. We got all these high-paid jobs because of the unions. Yes, you do. Those remaining jobs, there is a downside to taking money out of people's pockets, out of companies' pockets, and giving it to government people.
Well, it's like I say, that's what companies start looking at is like, well, how much cheaper can I get it in Mexico? So,
well, our local economy, we for so many years put all our chips in manufacturing, and for a whole generation, that worked out pretty well. We were doing pretty darn good. But the economy has changed. We've lost a lot of those jobs due to a lot of reasons that are far bigger than Muskegon County, national.
Well, if it's not fixable, then why are we giving these people money to fix it?
Well, we've got to diversify. I mean,
well, here's one of the ways that Muskegon leaders have decided to diversify. Muskegon, I don't know if you knew this. Muskegon has a port committee. This is a committee made up almost entirely of government types. They're meeting, and they believe that they can do something to encourage more big ships to come in and out of the Port of Muskegon. Now, of course, we already have a commercially, privately owned commercial port, the Mart Dock. Which, if you go out there, they don't have that many ships, and certainly will have fewer and fewer as well, of course, the coal ships that would go to the Cobb plant are no longer going to be coming in, but there is ample availability of slips for big ships at the Mart Dock. But the brilliant folks in who lead our county have decided that they need to expand, but and in some manner, I would imagine they're going to have to get some money for this expansion. Once again, the money will come from who knows where, but it will be given to the Einsteins that are on this committee.
There's dredging being talked about.
Well, that's a different issue. I do want to come back to the dredging, but here's the interesting thing. Committee members say it's not just a county project. They want it to be regional, which of course means then that we won't even have a vote on it. Once you go regional, an unelected board, very much like the European Union, an unelected but appointed board will make the decisions for us so that we don't have to, wake up in the middle of the night worried about the tough decisions that are need to be made. But here's the quote. We intend for this to be a regional thing. Here's another quote from another committee member. This particular one is Ben Cross. He says, Muskegon Port has few, if any, competitors when it comes to businesses in West Michigan looking to ship through a deep water port. There's no major ports. We're the largest from Mackinac Bridge to here, which is a stunning comment, which, of course, Yeah, okay. If that's the case, and we've been the only one on the West Michigan coast, why have we not had serious expansion? Well, they're going to look into it with your money and their time. Yeah. And I would imagine at some point they'll be compensated for their time.
One thing that might be a little bit counterintuitive, and I don't know if it's going to be a result of anything that does or doesn't happen there, but as we've seen the water levels drop, and if in fact they continue to, our deep water port might actually stand to benefit from that, as some of these more shallow ports become non-viable unless they do some very serious dredging, and we still have the depth to accommodate at least medium-sized boats.
Well, and again, I have no problem with that, and I'd like to see more traffic there, assuming that there was a demand for it. But we already have a company that pays property taxes, that pays taxes on their profits, that employs people, that has empty slips as it now stands. And again, we are consistently promised, just give me more of your money, give me more of the power that you will cede from yourself to me, and I will provide you these benefits. It certainly hasn't been the case. I'm not so sure in Muskegon County you can come up with any, maybe not even one, certainly not 10 monies where money has been given to government where the promised result has in fact happened. So Sean, do a little homework and come back one show and say, hey, Riley, let's look at this. Hey, but a couple of other things. Here's another promised buyback. Here's another way that these victims and those folks who are afraid to testify in court are. The chief of police in Muskegon Heights is going to have another gun buyback. This is after the really successful one that they had a year or so ago. So if you're a victim or you're a possible witness, hopefully the bad guys will be selling their guns back to the chief of police. So we'll be back after this break.
Look how sad your smartphone is because it doesn't have iHeartRadio. It can't listen to 1,500 live radio stations. It can't make its own custom music stations. It can't even use the Perfect 4 feature. No wonder it's sad. I may weep myself. But you can cheer that phone up. Download the iHeartRadio app now. It's free at iHeartRadio.com. iHeartRadio is now available on Roku.
Wow, this place is so adorable. I can't believe we haven't stopped in sooner.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Betsy, look at these sweaters. 2 for $75, and they look amazing on our girls.
Maybe they would. I'm not sure if it's the right size.
Oh, come on. They're perfect. What's wrong?
Suzanne, I have no business being in the store. I should not be shopping. Things are really tight right now.
Tight? Are you and Michael having trouble?
We're behind on our mortgage, and Michael is really worried.
Listen, Bill and I had the same problem a few months ago, and we got some really great counseling, and it was free. I'm going to email you the information as soon as we get home.
Suzanne, you're the best.
If you even think you may be in danger of foreclosure, call the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. Certified housing counselors can help you work through your problems, and the service is free. Call the NFCC at 866-687-6322 or visit mortgagehelpnow.org. That's mortgagehelpnow.org. This has been a public service from the NFCC.
Smog, garbage, sewers, car exhaust. Today's world puts our sense of smell on overload. Luckily, there are places we can go to refocus our senses. Our national wildlife refuges. When you visit, your nose will instantly recognize the purity of nature. Bask in the aromatic scent of the black pine trees blowing in the wind. Detect the sweet fragrance of primroses, wild violets, and blue sage. Smell the fresh salt water in the air as waves crash into rocky shoals. When you smell these things, you're smelling the world the way we found it. With over 500 refuges across America, you don't have to go far to make a special connection with nature. Learn more at fws.gov/refuges. That's fws.gov/refuges.
24,000 children die every day from preventable causes. My name is Liam Neeson, and I believe that number should be 0. Believe in 0.
Join the effort. Visit
News Talk 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
Okay, those hands are in your pockets, they're in your purses, they're in your wallets, but more importantly, if you're interested in a job, they're in your boss's pockets, too. And as we just found out, 68% of the people surveyed here in Muskegon County think it's just a groovy idea to increase taxes in the county. And
groovy's the word they used, too, I think.
Groovy was the word that they used. And so the business owners in the state will, or in the county anyway, I'm sure will feel some type of groove. I'm not so sure it'll be groovy. We did get a call off air. Cal, thank you so much. There has been much talk. As a matter of fact, if you speak with, I know I spoke with Representative Marcia Hovey, right, and she was talking about how the tremendous cuts to education have been made throughout the state, and in fact, that has been debunked. I'll repost this on EyeOnMuskegon later today, but the funding to Michigan schools has gone up every single year on a per pupil basis and on an absolute basis. And one of the things that the left, the crying left, likes to tell you is that funding from this particular area has gone down, and it may very well be that in a particular school district that the funding from local tax dollars or from this fund or that fund may or may not be down. But the reality is, when you add up all the places where the school districts get money, funding per student and in total has been up across the board. And what is not counted, just as they do not count here in Muskegon County for the employee pensions and benefits, they do not count the underfunding of the Michigan teachers and employees education retirement fund, or the what they call other retirement benefits, which is the health care. So they're not even counting. Think about it. If a school goes out and it borrows $1 million to pay for benefits to retirees, well, that's $1 million, isn't it? They borrowed it. It's got to be paid back at some point. So that isn't even factored in. So the schools, just like the federal government, when they're talking about these cuts, the interesting article about the funding on, at least on Homeland Security, where there have been threats, and I've been seeing on TV, you have to worry if you're going to be traveling any place out of Grand Rapids or perhaps in Muskegon, that to expect long lines because of big serious cuts into the TSA folks. And
sequester related?
Because of the sequester. Well, a couple of interesting points to that. One, of course, is that there isn't one single cut to the TSA. Matter of fact, the budget, even after the sequester for 2013 for the TSA, is going to be higher than it was. The cuts are in what they had requested. In other words, they're not going to get as much. That is not a cut. That's in fact an increase. But just before the sequester, the last minute sequester date, the TSA went out, and this is like days before, and spent $50 million on new uniforms for the TSA folks. $50 million. So they're telling us, on one hand, oh my golly, there's no fat to cut. All we're cutting is bone and gristle and brain and all the top important things. And on the other hand, their actions belie what's going on. So that's just government. They tell us, and we seem to keep, just like Charlie Brown, day after day after day, say, okay, I'll give you more of my money, I'll give you more of my power, if you'll promise to make things better. And I don't think is there anybody in this country who thinks things are really better today than they were last year, the year before, 5 years ago?
On that whole sequester thing is I kind of figure that those were cuts that they were intending to make, and nobody on either side of the aisle wanted to take responsibility for them. So they set up this weird automatic mechanism where, if we do nothing, then it'll happen. And then we can each point fingers at each other and say it was the other guy's fault. And then nobody's held responsible.
Yeah, I agree. This is Republicans and Democrats getting together and trying to avoid doing what I believe must be done. At some point, you have to face up to the fact that you're spending money you don't have. And here's another one here. Detroit emergency manager says he'll haggle with bondholders. Well, what that means is if you've gone out and you bought bonds, municipal bonds from the city of Detroit, he's telling us he's going to say, look, if you've got $10,000 bond, you're not going to get 10 grand back. You're going to get $6,000 back or $7,000 back or $9,000 back. Now, they just did that in a fashion in Crete. They said, look, you've got $100,000 in the bank. We're only going to give you $90,000, or in some cases, we're going to give you $40,000.
Well, those are right on people's savings deposits,
right?
Like
exactly.
Right in your savings account,
that's
which
savings.
is a little bit different than a bond.
Well, actually, it isn't. A bank deposit is a bond, by the way, and a municipal bond is a bond. And whether you've left it in the bank in a CD or insured bank account, which is a bond, or you put it in a municipal bond, you have an expectation, a reasonable expectation, that you're going to get that back. Think about anybody in the United States who would be interested now in buying a bond from the city of Detroit. The city has to reissue bonds day in and day out.
I think anyone that reads the news is probably wary for a while now.
Well, the problem is that they have to get people willing to buy these bonds. Well, it's going to be very tough. But here's to me the big deal. And again, think about money here. I know that we've degraded the term billion. The city of Detroit, their total burden, and they haven't got an absolute prayer of paying this back, is $15 billion today and counting. $15 billion.
That's why I would not want that job of financial manager stepping in there, because talk about having a big task ahead of you. Right. I don't know how you balance those.
Well, I'll tell you how you balance it. You increase the taxes on everybody else again. So this giant pot of apparently immobile human beings in the state of Michigan, this giant pot of corporations who are going to stay here for high pay and high benefits and all the wonderful things that we offer here, like deep water ports, are going to stick around. At some point, these bills are going to have to be paid at some point. So anyway, I want to just touch base on one other quick thing just on this. Someone has come up with the real costs of what happens to a community when Walmart comes into town. And this particular article says that it'll decrease the community's economic output by over 20 years by an estimated $3 million, or $13 million, which actually, if you think about it, is why did they use 20 years? Why not 2,000 years? I mean, it could have been in the trillions. But the funny thing was, the research was done by a Northwest community group. In other words, it's a totally bogus statistic. It's an absolutely bogus statistic.
I don't know what Northwest community group is.
A Northwest community group.
All consultants'
exactly.
viewpoint.
Yeah, there we go. But again, why 20 years? Why not 2,000 years? It's going to cost $17 trillion to the citizens of the White Lake area. Well. Anyway, hey, I put on a quote. There's obviously a big talk about gay marriage, and I don't want to get into the specifics of whether you support it or not. But there has been a big brouhaha by Republican National Committeeman Dave Agema, who's a recently retired state representative, and whose name is bandied about as a possible Senate candidate. Who knows? He's still a very bright guy. He's an ex-fighter pilot, ex-airline pilot, retired airline pilot, very, very bright guy just across the board. And he had posted on his Facebook, and he had the link to it, but it was something called, Statistics on Homosexuals, and it was put together by some religious group. And it was a long list of negative pathologies that some studies have said, happen to people who happen to be gay or lesbian. And interestingly, every one of these, I'm looking at it right now, but there were like 29 of these posts. But every one of these came with a footnote as to where he got it. Let me read to you where some of these came from. Here's It's a book, Homosexuality is a Study of Diversity Among Men and Women. Here's one of the Family Research Institute. Here's one from the Post-Tribune. I'm not sure what some newspaper. Here's one from Lesbian News. Here's one from American Journal of the American Medical Association, and on and on and on. Newsweek, San Francisco AIDS Foundation. In other words, whether they're accurate today or not, at least it's a list of things from someone who decided that he wanted to post these. And Dave Agema looked at it and said, well, that's interesting. I'll link to it. He put it on there. And he's now being, told he's got to, pull out from his position as national committeeman, that he should be shunned, he should be attacked, and he has been attacked. And my question about this is, do we really want a world where people who believe that, in this case, that marriage ought to be between a man and a woman, where that is a concept that is so out of bounds? Sort of like, should we still have black slaves? Come on, let's have a nice conversation. Should we go back to black slavery? Well, that's a conversation I think is out of bounds, okay? Well, is the marriage being between a man and a woman such an out of bounds concept that we can't even have a conversation about it?
Well, I didn't read the full list of what he's got there, but I think it goes deeper than
it's on I put it on Muskegon Pundit.
On the marriage
the link
issue.
Is there.
And I think not only clearly everybody on the left side of the aisle came out strongly denouncing
many
him,
on the right side, many on the conservative side are denouncing him.
A significant number there, too, and I think because both sides see demographically the writing on the wall on the gay rights issue. There's still a lot of controversy in the baby boomers and older. But if you look at the 30 and under
crowd... But should we be able to speak? No, and I agree with you. I don't think there's any question that their marriage between same-sex marriage will become the norm at some point. It's a cultural change. I do not believe it should be dictated by the Supreme Court. It seems to me, let the cities and the states, let the people vote. I mean, it was only, 2008 or 9 that California, I think on this second or third occasion, reaffirmed the fact that marriage should be between a man and a woman. It was only just last week that Hillary Clinton changed her position, and it was only just last year that President Obama changed his. So the facts are that clearly this is not a Republican-Democrat issue. Right. This is a cultural change. But should we demonize someone who brings up real facts that came from, in many cases, AIDS or gay rights organizations and the Journal of the American Medical Society? Should we not even be allowed to speak about that? Should we shut that kind of conversation down?
Absolutely. I think everybody ought to be able to speak their opinion on it. And I think especially someone who's in a public position like this gentleman ought to know, if you say something provocative, it's going to provoke. And
he didn't, by the way. All he did was link. I linked it to mine also, by the way. You can see this on, if you go to Muskegon Pundit. Should I be shut down? Should people be calling this radio station and saying, hey, Riley linked the same thing, it's the exact same thing that Agema did. Should they shut down this show?
Well, if you've got a right to say it, they've got a right to respond, and that doesn't necessarily mean you get the boot, but they can definitely speak out in opposition.
Well, that's not really what they want us speaking out. They want to shut down even the thought that people. Well, I think that's a very slippery slope.
And I do think there's something different between you and this guy. You're a commentator. You speak out on issues, whereas he's a private citizen.
He happens to have been recently elected as a Republican National Committeeman, but beyond that, he's a retired fighter jet pilot. Anyway, that's just hey. Let's see. There was one thing I wanted to touch. I know what it was. Our senator, very proudly, Jeff Hansen, said that we've got money. He and others have voted to dredge the various marinas within the state of Michigan. Now, this is separate monies from dredging the Muskegon Channel, for instance. That's a different kind of money. But this is for Michigan marinas. Well, I had a chance to talk with our senator earlier this week, and because I used to own a marina, and I've got a little bit of an insight into this that some may not. But one of the reasons there were many reasons, but a contributing reason that I sold my marina back in the 80s was because the water levels were very, very low, and I knew that I was going to have to pay to dredge my marina. And I was wondering, because there are many, many marinas on Muskegon Lake and White Lake, is this money going to go to all the privately owned marinas who pay property taxes, who pay income taxes on their profits, and, of course, who hire people? And no, they're not. This only goes to the two marinas, one, the White Lake Municipal Marina, and the other is the City of Muskegon Marina. Now, think about it. Neither one of these marinas pays their fair share. People like to talk about their fair share. Well, they don't pay property taxes, just like Great Lakes Marina, for instance, does. They don't pay income taxes on their profits because they don't have any profit. They suck money. I don't know about the Whitehall, but I do know that the one in the City of Muskegon is a money loser.
Well, if they're government-owned, who would they be paying property tax to, themselves?
Well, I think now you're getting to my point. But now they're going to get, I think it's $200,000 for the Muskegon one, and I don't know what they're going to what the cost to dredge is going to be for the one up in Whitehall. Yeah. Exactly. Great question, though, Sean. Why are they even publicly owned if they are such money losers, if they're not paying their fair share, if they are sucking it down? You can imagine how much money could have been raised and could be today by both of these marinas, inordinately valued. I don't know, certainly in the multiple millions of dollars. And they would not only bring that money back into the cities who happen to own them, they would start paying their fair share. They would start paying these property taxes to the cities. Yeah. They'd start paying, hopefully, income taxes on their profits. And as I like to do every spring, and I go out and take pictures of the White Lake Marina and the Muskegon City Marina, and then I compare it with Great Lakes Marina. They're almost entirely empty, or at best half full. And Great Lakes is packed.
And, of course, White Lake will all be very, very successful. The boaters coming to go to Walmart, so...
Well,
that's the boater shop.
And Walmart will bring those people from Traverse City and other places that may not have. Well, again, I thought, isn't that an interesting thing? Yes, okay, here's a state that, again, doesn't have enough money. Our governor's told us we don't have enough money to fix the road, so we're going to have to increase our taxes over there. And there's just another tax that's hitting us, just so that you can be happy about this. If you have a vehicle, an automobile, you're going to pay an additional $11 per year in order to cover the state's unlimited medical care for auto-related injuries. We're the only state in the country that has that. That adds up to almost $200 per year for every person who does pay car insurance. So it's, again, it's only 11 here, it's only 26 there, it's only 150 there. It adds up and it adds up and it adds up. And at some point...
The legislature's talking about reforming that particular fund, too. And the one thing I'd like to see an auditing of the books, see exactly what's in the fund.
I'm with you there. I don't trust them. Are you suggesting you don't trust them? Well, I trust that we'll be back unless, folks that don't want to hear the truth are going to shut us down. We'll be right back, folks.
Love me sometime.
If you are a business owner, whether your business is large or small, whether you provide products or services, whether your customers are consumers or other businesses, you can't succeed without marketing. Your marketing strategy should include social media. Join me, Denise Hunter, CEO of I Like Media Group, every Tuesday morning at 9:30 a.m. here on News Talk 1090 WKBZ for helpful tips and trending information about social media marketing.
Look how sad your smartphone is because it doesn't have iHeartRadio. It can't listen to 1,500 live radio stations. It can't make its own custom music stations. It can't even use the Perfect 4 feature. No wonder it's sad. I may weep myself. But you can cheer that phone up. Download the iHeartRadio app now. It's free at iHeartRadio.com. iHeartRadio is now available on Roku.
It's your car. You take it to people you trust.
You want to rip out your linkage. That's just an estimate, little lady.
They're your children. You want to keep them safe.
Hey, kids, shut your traps!
It's your health. You want a doctor with experience.
Hey, Joan, I'm Skip, and I'll be your doctor today.
I'm fine.
It's your finances. You want to go to the experts.
Quick and easy. Cut your payments by 50%.
Go to people with experience, real people you can trust.
We've got to find a way to get out from under this debt.
We can help. The National Foundation for Credit Counseling is a nonprofit organization that has been helping people for 60 years. Our certified counselors can help you eliminate your debt and teach you ways to stay out of debt. Speak with a counselor today at 800-388-2227 or visit debtadvice.org. National Foundation for Credit Counseling. Real solutions for real people. This is a public service campaign for the NFCC.
I knew I was stuck at this kid's house for the night. I decided to just go to sleep and get the night over with. But those guys came into the bedroom and got into a massive pillow fight. Let me tell you, it's not easy falling asleep when a sweaty little kid falls on you every 5 seconds. Even after the lights went out, Raleigh and his friends stayed up. A bunch of them snuck up on me to try and pull a hand in a bowl of warm water trick. Well, that was enough for me. I went downstairs to sleep in the basement even though it was pitch black. I left my sleeping bag upstairs and that was a mistake. Because it was freezing. I think it was probably the longest night of my life. When the sun came up this morning, I found out the reason it was so cold. I was sleeping right by the sliding glass door, and some fool had gone and left it open overnight. That really stunk, because if I knew there was a way to escape last night, I definitely would have taken it. To read more about the sleepover, check out Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Last Straw by Jeff Kinney. Explore new worlds and check out more cool books at your local library, and visit read.gov. Brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
Okay, honey, go play. My son needed a medical imaging exam, but talk of radiation made me a little concerned. So I asked our doctor, how will this exam improve his care? Are there alternative tests that don't use radiation? Is the facility accredited for quality and safety? And will he receive a child-sized radiation dose? Our doctor told me if you need a scan, the benefits outweigh any risk.
If you're concerned about radiation, ask your doctor and get the facts at imagegently.org.
Army Specialist Andrew Pike was paralyzed by a sniper while serving in Iraq. Paralyzed Veterans of America helped Andy get the auto, housing, and vocational benefits he earned. You can help our paralyzed veterans. Visit
Fox News Radio, I'm Jared Halpern. Easter Sunday at St. Peter's Square at the Vatican. 250,000 worshipers on hand for the first Easter message from Pope Francis.
A student told me that what she loves about this new pope is that he gives her hope. Another spoke of how during his Urbi et Orbi blessing, that's to the city and the world, he spoke with conviction of the need for political solutions to crises in the Middle East and in Africa, and an end to human slavery.
Fox Radio's Courtney Walsh at the Vatican. A murder mystery in Northeast Texas. Kaufman County District Attorney Mike McClellan and his wife found dead in the couple's home. 2 months ago, an assistant DA in Kaufman County was gunned down near his office. A bracket buster in college basketball.
Wichita State is going to the Final Four.
CBS Sports with the call. Wichita State upsets Ohio State. Syracuse also wins a pair of games to claim the Final Four spots today. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Here's the official News Talk 1090 WKBZ forecast for this Easter Sunday. A few showers this morning and then overcast skies this afternoon with a high near 45 with southwest winds 10 to 20 miles an hour. Partly to mostly cloudy skies tonight, a low down to 28 with northwest winds 15 to 25. Snow flurries and a few snow showers possible tomorrow with a high around 35. Northwest winds 15 to 25 and snow showers still a possibility on Tuesday with a high around 35. News Talk 1090, the talk of Muskegon.
Well,
you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
Yeah, dadgum government. Hey, we were talking before the break about these attempts to shout down folks who have the personal views or have the audacity of linking to someone who has another links that many of which have been published. But here's a comment. This is from a Democrat state representative, Joe Mitchell. I believe he's from Alabama. And in response to an email to a gentleman who had asked him and other lawmakers not to pass any laws that would restrict gun ownership, in other words, a Second Amendment guy, sends an email to his congressman or his representative and says, hey, don't do that if you could. Here's the response. He said, "You folk," quote, "you folk never used all this shit to protect my folk from your slaveholding, murdering, adulterous, baby-raping, incestuous, snaggle-toothed, backward-aid, inbred, imported, criminal-minded kinfolk."
But how's he really feel?
And I don't think there will be any backlash to State Representative Joe Mitchell because he has a D by his name.
Let nobody say that race has become a non-issue down in the South.
Right.
Well, actually, there have been numerous studies where apparently black Americans are mostly pro-gun because they do happen to live in the most dangerous parts of our country, and they do use those guns in many cases to protect themselves. But anyway,
on the topic of guns, I do want to give a quick shout out to one of my favorite events of the year. We just had this last week in Muskegon here.
Okay.
And that is the United Labor Sportsman Dinner every year.
Oh, there you go.
At some of the best wild game dishes, venison, wild turkey, some great smoked salmon you'll have every year. It sells out this time of year at the Polish Falcon, put on by a lot of the organized labor folks in town as a fundraiser for the United Way. And
I feel sorry for everybody who had to clean up the kitchen afterward. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
The Eagles have had a few of those too.
Now, has this happened already?
Yep, it was just last week, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. But
good, and you raised some money for a good cause.
Yeah, it'll be this time again next year, and I would encourage anyone to get their tickets very early because it does always sell out.
Well, get us the info, and we'll mention it on the show next year. Hey, a couple more things about guns. I don't know if you heard this. Well, of course, these things happen day in and day out, but they're shockingly not reported on local or most national media. But this is a North Carolina woman fights off two male intruders with a pistol. Apparently these folks, they broke into her house. Actually, she hid in a closet. This is not the other closet one, which was about a week ago. But these two guys opened the closet, and she blasted both of them and saved her life, very likely.
Shotgun?
No, in this case it was a pistol. Hey, but there's of course a jihad of sorts, certainly by the mostly folks in the Democrat Party. But in the past 2 years, one of the best places you could have invested your money would have been in gun manufacturing. But one of the best places you could have encouraged to grow in terms of building new jobs would have been in the gun industry. Get this, the gun industry in the last 2 years added, now this is not that big of an industry, 37,000 new jobs. These are new jobs with an average salary of $47,000 a year. That's salary, not including the benefits. This report states that in 2012 alone, the industry paid $5.1 billion in federal taxes. Seems to me like they were paying their fair share. So, interestingly, at one hand, folks want to shut down one of the very few really booming industries that is paying its fair share. But here's it doesn't say if it's a man or a woman. I wouldn't be at all surprised. It was a young gentleman. But in Manassas, Virginia, a server at a Buffalo Wild Wings, when he saw that two police officers had their guns on their hips, told them that they couldn't be served, that it was a gun-free establishment, and that they had to leave. Even though they, of course,
like a training issue
produced, it sounds like a training issue. But it's also a mindset. There are people in this country that fear police officers with guns in the same way that they might fear, probably more so than they would fear, let's say, a lion walking down the street. They probably want to pet the lion and make it a pet. But anyway, I found that kind of interesting. Hey, there's been a lot of talk now of the fact that all of the underpinnings of the global warming issue seem to be falling apart. There's been 20 years now, 20 years where global temperatures have not risen, even though it was guaranteed that they would rise as CO2 in the atmosphere has risen, and CO2 in the atmosphere has most certainly risen. And one of the things that is happening, and unfortunately we've diverted so many hundreds of billions, probably in the trillions if you include all of the European countries, into things that clearly aren't going to work, like the windmills and much of the solar that's been done so far. But some scientists in the Stanford University have designed an entirely new form of cooling structure, get this, that cools even when the sun is shining. And it has to do with different types of structures and, I would imagine, nanotechnology and things of that sort.
Maybe some sort of heat pump.
No, actually, this reflects it had nothing to do with the pumping. This is a structure itself. The reflector has to reflect as much of the sunlight as possible, and the structure must efficiently radiate heat back into space. And it has to do with wavelengths and things of that sort. But the point is that there is a national security issue, which, of course, the fracking people are not interested in, but where we are becoming less and less dependent, thankfully, on the oil from people who hate us, like in Venezuela and in Araby, if you will, the Arabic countries, the Muslim countries there. But there is the fact that at some point we know we can't just be using energy without being concerned about the environment, and it would make far more sense to be diverting things to research of things that will work. And at some point, solar will work. Windmills almost for sure never will.
Well, the cheapest barrel, the cheapest amount of energy is the barrel of oil you don't burn, or the gas you don't burn, through conservation. And anything like this that can reduce consumption without lowering quality of life, I mean, that's a win-win.
Well, that's a very reasonable way to look at it. But here's another way that you may not want to look at it. There's a headline on a German newspaper. It says, beware the coming ice age. And just like Newsweek and Time did back in the 70s. So anyway, the monies that we've spent over the years, the billions and billions and billions, one of the things that's kind of interesting and gives you a sense of the mindset of those who are the big proponents of the windmills is in the windmill contracts is a provision that monies must be set aside to tear them down in the event that they don't work. I wonder why you'd put that in. You certainly...
Well, not only in the event they don't work, but anything even successful is going to have a lifespan, and it's going to involve decommissioning after the lifespan. The BC Cobb plant has worked, but it's near the end of its lifespan, and is going to have to be dismantled.
I like this guy.
Well, actually, and that's a legitimate point, but we'll see. Hey, well, in terms of how well your government protects you, over the next 5 years, our federal government's decided to invest your money, and interestingly, they don't have an estimate of cost, but is to create, help wildlife adapt to climate change. There was a golden eagle, that was chopped up by a big wind farm in Nevada, and in fact, I didn't know this. I looked it up, but the fine for inadvertent eagle chopping is $200,000. So we'll have to see how that works out for those folks out there who are big supporters. Hey, we're still back at Carmen's every Tuesday and Thursday. This week, lots of big stuff going on at Carmen's Cafe. I'm there from 2 to... Oh, wait a second. No. The county commission has changed their meetings from 3:30 to 4, so I'll be there from 2:30 to about...
They're hoping you didn't hear.
I'm sure they were.
Try the tree bark toast at Carmen's. It's great.
I have the tree bark toast. Yeah, I have. Well, of course, we meet every Thursday. Everyone's invited who's interested in political conversation and other good conversation every Thursday from 8 o'clock. And we usually hang out there till about sometimes 10:30. Don't forget, we do post the full audio of the show, and Oscar's getting us the video now at EyeOnMuskegon.com. We try to get that up on Sunday afternoons. All of my show prep and a pretty good blog is themuskegonpundit.com. And Talk to Muskegon Show, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can hear me. Sean, thank you so much for zipping over here. Oscar, thank you so much. I don't know if we're still on primetime TV or not, Oscar, but if you're looking every Monday, TV 38 or Comcast Channel 397.
For a few more weeks anyway.
Okay, good.
And happy Easter to all.
And happy Easter to all of you folks. We'll talk to you next week.
Love me sometime.
how sad your smartphone is because it doesn't have iHeartRadio. It can't listen to 1,500 live radio stations. It can't make its own custom music stations. It can't even use the Perfect 4 feature. No wonder it's sad. I may weep myself. But you can cheer that phone up. Download the iHeartRadio app now. It's free at iHeartRadio.com. iHeartRadio is now available on Roku.
I can solve difficult problems for a Fortune 500 company.
I can run a successful business.
I can put my military experience to work for your company.
I can manage your home improvements.
I can publicize your message.
I can teach your children.
But I can't put my skills to work for your organization
if I'm not given the opportunity.
Nearly 50 million Americans have disabilities. Capitalize on their talents with employment practices that benefit everyone. Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
This is WKBZ Muskegon and WOOD HD2 Muskegon.
Good morning. Happy Easter to each and every one of you. I hope this is the first day of the rest of your life there and you've prepared for this Easter day. Well, happy Easter to each and every one of you. Make this a very blessed day for all of you